You guys know we have a
Please, I like that.
Wednesday,
Oh, yeah, I know.
October
No,
3rd,
it's
regular class, and it is quite the special regular class. With that, let's see, we have, if you're at home, bummer, because we turned in book reports today, and it was super exciting. But we're getting into a story called Man from the South. You also have homework you're going to have to read for this Friday called Hey You Down There, which is a story. It is on my website. You can just go to the thing and then do the downloading and read from there. It's not due till Friday, so you can wait till Thursday night to freak out if you want. But other than that, that is the only homework you have for me, since the book report is now done, and you can check that off. It is just reading that story. And we're going to get into a story called Man from the South, which is also on my website, which is the only one that you remember. Book report is turned in. Let's see, we have from there, we should be turned in. We're good to go on that part. Let's see. Once again, on my website, if you need the two things, Hey You Down There and Man from the South, we're down to our final stories. I try to save some of the bestest ones for last, because we are done with short stories next week. Before we go to fall break, we're going to take our big final test. We have one more story next week we'll get to, and we'll move on from stuff there. In our story that we're going to get to today, it's going to be our last element we're going to get a chance to teach you, and it's called suspense. Do you guys know what suspense is?
Yeah.
No.
What is suspense?
It's like when it's almost like on a TV show, like where something interesting is about to happen and it cuts to a commercial right away. But like in a story, it's like they keep building up, but nothing really happens, and it kind of keeps you to try to think, what do you think is going to happen, and it keeps building and building until it actually happens.
Works for me. Ekamir?
It's like, if you're watching any movie, you know, there's, like, this whole part where they have to, like, figure out how to kill the villain, and then after they find out how to kill the villain, there's, like, a little fighting scene, which is kind of suspenseful, because...
They could die.
Yeah.
Yeah, villains are always bad. Yeah. Which part of the mountain does suspense come in?
Rising action.
Top ground.
Works for, usually the suspense is the rising action, and then when we kill the villain, that becomes your climax at the top. It's usually whenever I'm reading the book out loud. Well, for you guys, first period is not the best example because we seem to be reading forever before we get to the suspense. But the suspense is the part where you don't want the person to stop reading. The point of this, oh, you want to read more? There you go. What part of the mountain will it be found? You guys just did that one. Usually it should be in the rising action. This one, we are definitely going to have suspense, because even though we've not necessarily had it in our book over there, this will be the one when we get to the stopping point, you guys are going to be all grumpy and yelling at me, and it's great. I do a little dance at you, because I'm like, I have to stop reading. And you're like, no! And you table flip. Alright, we're going to get to a guy wearing a Panama hat, and they're going to talk about buckskin shoes. This is Panama hat and buckskin shoes. You have some idea of what it's going to be. Loud one, we're going to have you embrace your name. You're going to need to be loud so my microphone can pick you up. And we're going to attempt to have you read it.
He's gonna read it?
He's going to read, not the whole thing.
I want to read too.
That's fine. When we get done, if you want to read what I've done in the past, is instead of raising your hand, you just put fist on top of head. So I can tell the difference between I have a question and I like the sound of my voice. And then that's fine with me. I have no problem having you guys read. We can switch off. There is a character who talks that I will take over. And you'll know I'm not going to do the whole story, but I'm going to do that character's voice. But you'll figure it out when we get there. Cole! Nice and loud voice.
It was getting on towards 6
Wait, pause! Before he goes. One, you're going to figure out point of view, setting, characters as we get into it. All right, now loud one.
It was getting towards 6 o'clock, so I thought I'd buy myself a Coke and get out and sit in a deck chair by the swimming pool and have a little evening sun. I went to the bar and got the Coke and carried it outside and wandered down the garden toward the pool. It was a fine garden with lawns and beds of
azaleas
and
you guys
tall
know what
coconut
azalea
palms.
is?
It's a kind of plant. An
Yeah, big flower, like flowery petals.
Yeah, my mom has one.
And the
Here.
wind was blowing strongly through the tops of the palm trees, making the leaves hiss and crackle as they were on fire. I could see the clusters of big brown coconuts hanging down from underneath the leaves.
One more.
There were plenty of deck chairs around the swimming pool, and there were white tables and huge brightly colored umbrellas and sunburned men and women sitting around in swimsuits. In the pool itself, there were 3 or 4 girls, about a dozen boys, all splashing and making a lot of noise, and throwing a large, colorful beach ball at one another.
Pause. So one, what's our point of view in the story? How do you know? Nicely done. What time of day is it?
Evening.
6 o'clock.
How do you know?
Because it said at the beginning.
Look at you guys starting to pick up on clues. Where is it taking place?
The pool. The pool.
All right, so at a pool, and as far as that, we don't know. We're going to find out more about where it's taking place, but so far, all we knew is it's taking place next to a pool. Character-wise, we just have the guy talking to us, and evening time at the pool, and then a bunch of kids playing in the pool, because apparently that's what kids do. All right, keep going from there, young one.
It's about 6 o'clock. I stood watching them. The girls were English girls from the hotel. The boys I didn't know about, but they surrounded them. They sounded American, and I thought they were probably naval cadets who come ashore from the U.S. Naval Training Vessel, which had arrived in the harbor that morning.
Pause for a second. You guys know what a naval cadet is?
Yes.
What's it?
It's like someone that's going to be in the Navy.
They're
Yeah.
trained.
Training to be in the Navy. So in the Navy, the big boats and stuff like that. So now we'll say that, yeah. So the bunch of people there, like Navy training people who were there, hanging out, running around, playing in the pool and stuff like that. So we have a bunch of English girls, like from English meaning not like we speak English,
Like
but
British.
British, and then American dudes who are all in the Navy, like doing flirty flirt, because apparently that's what young people like to do is do flirty flirt. All right, keep going from there.
Maybe. I went over and sat down under a yellow umbrella where there were 4 empty seats, and I poured my drink and settled back comfortably in a nice chair. It was very pleasant sitting there in the sunshine with my Coke. It was pleasant to sit and watch the swimmers splashing about in the green water. Ew.
Real quick, the green water, so you don't freak out. We're going to find out in a moment it's taking place down in the Caribbean. So it's like the islands that are down there. And a lot of times they fill their pools with ocean water. And so it's just because the water is right there. So it's the green water, not because it's like icky, nasty water, but because it's like that really fancy, like oceany water that's down there. So not green, ucky water, but green water because it's straight from the ocean kind of stuff. So it's supposed to be more of a fancy thing than like an icky thing. All right. Keep going from there, Watts.
Oh, I'm ordering.
No, never mind. Take it back. You had your hand. There we go. Keep over there, Gibson.
Okay. The American sailors were getting on nicely with the English girls. They'd reached the stage where they were diving under the water and tipping them up by their legs.
That part, real quick, when they're going underwater and then tipping them up, that would be what we call flirting. When you see the pretty girl and you're like, giggle, giggle, giggle. When you throw them up, they're like, oh, you. That's what they're best. They go back and forth because, you know, teenagers. All right, keep going.
Just then I noticed a small, oldish man walking briskly around the edge of the pool. He was
Immaculately means super fancy.
immaculately dressed in a white suit, and he walked very quickly with little bouncing strides, pushing himself high up into his toes with each step. He had on a large creamy Panama?
Panama.
Panama?
One looks up here.
This one looks like that. Okay. Panama hat. And he came bouncing along the side of the pool, looking at the people and the chairs. He stopped beside me and smiled, showing 2 rows of very small, uneven teeth. Slightly tarnished, I smiled back.
Excuse, please, but may I sit here?
Certainly, I said. Go ahead. He bobbed around to the back of the chair and inspected it for safety. Then he sat down and crossed his legs. His white buckskin shoes had little holes punched all over them for ventilation.
So these are what shoes they're talking about. What he did is because we're going to find a similar area. No, the next paragraph we find out where they are. They're on an island where it's really hot, and so what he did is he just took a knife and then punched holes in the top of his shoes because if not, your feet get all sweaty and you get like swamp toe. And so that's why like tennis shoes have ventilation so that you don't get swamp foot. So he did the same thing to his own. He just went stab, probably not with his foot in the shoe at the same time, but stabbed the top of it so that way it has a little ventilation. And so he's dressed all fancy in a white suit with a hat on it and stuff like that. Let's see. Eckenbeer. Let's see. A fine evening.
He said.
They are all evenings fine here in Jamaica. By the way, we just figured out where it's taking place. Way to pick up on clues. So proud of you. All right.
I couldn't tell if the accent were Italian or Spanish, but I felt fairly sure he was some sort of South American. And old too. When you saw him close, probably around 68 or 70. Yes, I said. It is wonderful here, isn't it?
And who, might I ask, are these? These is no hotel people.
He was pointing at the bathers in the pools. I think they're American sailors, I told him. They're American sailors who are learning to be sailors.
Of course they are Americans. Who else in the world is going to make as much noise as that? You are not American, no?
No, I said I'm not. Suddenly one of the American cadets was standing in front of us. He was dripping wet from the pool, and one of the English girls was standing there with him.
And when he says that these are not hotel people, he means that people staying at the hotel. What it is a bunch of these naval kids and these girls like sort of wandered over to the hotel and are just playing in the pool, as opposed to like the people actually staying there, because you can tell they're sort of not the normal people to be staying at this.
Jamaican?
So they're taking place in Jamaica, but the guy who's staying at this in Jamaica, they're all hanging out at the same hotel is where it's taking place. All right, Cole, you want to keep reading from there?
Wait, are we at?
Let's see. So let's see. No, one of them. Are these chairs taken?
Are these chairs taken? He said. No, I answered. Mind if I sit down? Go ahead. Thanks, he said. He had a towel in his hand, and when he sat down, he unrolled it and produced a pack of cigarettes with a lighter. He offered the cigarettes to the girl, and she refused. Then offered them to me. I took one. The little man said,
Thank you, no. But I think I have a cigar.
He pulled out a crocodile
Case.
and got himself a cigar. Then he produced a knife which had small scissors in it, and he snipped off the end of the cigar.
Pause for a moment. So we introduced a new character. So not just named character talking to us, not just old man. Who's our new person?
The youngin.
The youngin who is sailor guy, and we also
Leia.
technically have a fourth one, although the fourth one's not done anything yet.
The girl.
And the girl who's just there. And then so our old dude pulls out what's called the crocodile cigar case, and so I'm sure when you guys smoke your cigars, it's the same thing. But it's a cigar case, looks like this, made out of crocodile skin, and it keeps your cigars all nice and together so they don't fall apart. And you pop it apart, and then you pull out the cigar, and then you have to, at the end of the cigar, in order to smoke it, you have to chop off the end of it with little scissors. And that's why he pulls out his scissors and goes and cuts off the end of it. That way he can sit there and smoke it. So that's why he pulls out his own cigars as opposed to the cigarettes. Mr. Brovicast, those are bad habits. Don't worry, it's about to get a lot worse.
Here, let me give you a lighter. The American boy held up his lighter.
That will not work in this wind.
Sure, it'll work. It always works. The little man removed an unlighted cigar from his mouth.
Cocked his head up.
Cocked his head on one side and looked at the boy.
Always?
Sure, it never fails. Not with me anyway.
So pause for a moment there. The lighter he's talking about, and I brought one in, so I had to get it this morning, is a lighter that's going to be like this. It's not your normal one that you guys probably use to light fireworks, but it's one that's called a Zippo. And they came out around World War II, and this story is taking place shortly after World War II. And the idea being is that you have to open it up, and this morning I had to refill it because, sorry, I don't smoke, bad news. I keep one here just for the story, and you have to put lighter fluid on the inside of it, and then there's a little piece of flint there, and you flick the little switch, and it lights like that. The idea being, though, is that it doesn't blow out. So you can like go back and forth. If it's windy outside, you can still light your cigarettes because a boy got to smoke. The only way to get it out is you have to close the top. That kills the oxygen. So the idea they did was for like people who are in the army, when you're out there on the front lines and you really got to have a cigarette before you die, you don't want to have the wind stop you. So you pop it open and you're like, I'm going to get shot. All right, let's finish with my cigarette. And you pop it open, light your cigarette, you're good to go. And you go ahead and close it. That's the type of lighter they're talking about. The reason I bring it out is because it's going to play a big role in the story in just a moment. Yeah?
I feel like it'd be like really cool. So like, if you're on the battlefield and you're about to die, and like, you gotta smoke a cigarette, and then you close it and it catches the bullet right as like
Someone's been watching too many movies. All right, Young, from there.
You're about to die. Why are you smoking this?
The little man was over on one side. He was still watching the boy.
Well. So you say this famous lighter, it never fails. Is that you say?
Sure, said the boy. That's right. He was about 19 or 20 with a long, freckled face with a rather sharp bird-like nose. His chest was not very sunburned, and there were freckles there too. and a few wisps of pale reddish hair. He was holding a lighter in his right hand, ready to lift the wheel. It never fails, he said, smiling now because he was purposely
Exaggerating.
exaggerating his little boast. I promise you, it never fails.
One moment, please.
The hand that held the cigar came up high, palm outward, as though it was stopping traffic.
Now, just one moment.
He was curiously soft, toneless voice and kept looking at the boy all the time.
Shall we not perhaps make a little bet on that?
He smiled at the boy.
Shall we not make a little bet on whether your lighter lights?
Sure, I'll bet, the boy said. Why not?
You like to bet?
Sure, I'll always bet. The man paused and examined the
And there we stop because tomorrow we're going to find out what the bet is, and that's where our suspense kicks in. Congratulations having your book reports turned in, enjoying your candy, not leaving trash, making good